we had we had a container that like managed to hit right in that 3-week window with 150%. We thought that we were going to get around, like just the timing was going to work out perfectly. And, when you're paying 100% or more on a product, it's pretty wild to actually pay for the product again and some more before you even get it, right? That was like in the days you were hearing about people abandoning containers worth of product because it just wasn't cost effective to pay the tariffs, right? I think for the most part, if I believe that there should be some tariffs. I think it makes sense to pay something to be offshoring these whatever manufacturing these parts. When we're in the 30 to 40% range, that's already baked into the math for us. It's when you start doubling when it's 100% or 150% that it gets pretty painful. We go through multiple repricing exercises every year, and we always quote 1 or 2 US manufacturers for some of our stuff. And I hate to say it, but it's like, I'd love to build it in the States. I'd love to be able to just drive to the factory, right? But minimum of 3x and often 5 and sometimes even 10x the price, sourcing these products. Yeah. And it's really, really difficult for a small company like ours to be able to compete against the big boys that own factories, often overseas as well, and to be able to build a product that's cost effective, right? So if we were building medical equipment, I can see how that could be a different calculus. I think, again, exactly, right? And we're ultimately selling something that is pretty commoditized. We're competing against cheap drivers that have been manufactured and perfected in China over the last 15 years. And so it's not ideal, but I think the biggest thing that we could get through almost anything if it would just be predictable. Right now, obviously, the sort of volatility and lack of predictability, that's causing the most stress. The fact that every 3 days we have to reassess, that's stressing us out. And I think, as you know, in the manufacturing world as well, you deal with these lead times, which can be, 3 months, 4 months. And the idea that you could order something today that could end up, with a PO from a customer, and by the time it shows up, it might cost 3 times the price, and you have to eat that. That's pretty anxiety-inducing.
It seems like from a legislative standpoint that it would have to be locked in. You know what I mean? Like if it is pre-ordered and you're already, you've already quoted that to a customer, there shouldn't be a way that could happen. I just don't understand that at all. Is there any recourse? Is there anyone to call, and say,
Not
hey,
really.
listen, I need an exception or an exemption or something like that?
No, the irony, the joke is, of course, that most of the people in the government have been laid off at this point, so there's no one even left to call. But in all seriousness, part of the problem with these sort of emergency executive order based approaches is that they're not really well understood, right? And so these are it's a 2-page document that says this is the new rule, and that needs to be 150 pages minimum to really outline all of these nuances, even before you start to talk about exemptions and stuff. Yeah, so we have suppliers, for example, JLC PCB. We work with them all the time. They also do CNC stuff. We often order fully assembled circuit boards, just prototyping, for a board that would cost $500 in the States ends up costing $100, landed in 5 days. It's incredible. And for example, what they started doing was just saying, we're just going to collect 175% tariff on everything and sit on it, and then we'll give it back to you if that doesn't hit. But so you're starting to see people say, well, we're just going to err on the side of the most insane, case, and so that we're at least covering our bases. Now, of course, that's tricky to do with customers that are completely removed from the manufacturing side of things. But yeah, look, I would even be fine if we said, look, in 6 months, we're going to be dealing with 100% tariffs. That we could work with. We could come up with a plan, right? Yeah. I think that's what I've seen a lot of executives, even Elon, asking for, is just give us a chance to correct, because otherwise it feels more like a penalty for a decision you made 5 years ago. And again, we didn't make this decision because we were we're anti-American manufacturing. We made this decision because as a small company, it's really their only option, right? And and even in a bigger company, a lot of times, these publicly traded companies, sure, they have the cash to invest in American manufacturing, but it's a publicly traded company and it's beholden to the shareholders, which are saying, hey, profit margin, profit margin, profit margin, right? So we've created a system where it's just really tricky to do any of this stuff. And the last thing is on this, like from a time perspective, even if we were assembling the stuff in the States, we live in this world of everything is being sourced from all over the place for when you're talking about building these computer devices and stuff, especially, right? Like stuff is coming from all over the world. And so no matter what you do, there will be some level of global supply chain sourcing happening.
Yep.
And you got to be able to plan. It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And it baffles me because, I'm on board for the most part with the things the Trump administration is trying to do. And it seems, on the surface, like the intention was to benefit U.S. manufacturing. And I'm just kind of baffled at how this situation was rolled out so haphazardly, and that there's been no communication to the manufacturers about what to expect. And they're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants, trying to figure it out, moving production over here. Like even all my U.S. customers, I've got U.S. injection molders, electronics manufacturers that I generate business for. I saw this huge influx of leads come in at the beginning of the year, and they were asked to give all these quotes for jobs. And, and I follow up, hey, what happened to this one, this one? Oh, they were only doing that because of the tariffs, but now things are kind of like settled down. And so now they're, they don't actually need the quote anymore. So it's just
if anything, it just created more work, right? It was like, great, we have a bunch of leads, but they're not going to go anywhere because we're just not set up for it, right? I think you and I touched on that.
100% tariff, from what you're saying, is that's not even going to be enough to change the dynamic.
Nope. Yeah, we're literally talking about, like, that's challenging for me. But again, like you said, it's not an alternative. It doesn't mean, it's cheaper to build it in the States now. We need 300%, 400% tariffs. And that's just a world of chaos. That's going to be the soundbite that comes out of this, me asking for 400% tariffs. But the reality, right, is, to your point, it's not even really solving the problem that it purports to solve. I think what we've seen, I think we touched on this when we talked last time too. One of the things everybody likes to say, oh, well, it's just cheap labor in China, that's why they can do what they do. I mean, 15 years ago, when we started manufacturing in China, we were going and visiting factories, and like it was a dirt floor, and we're like, this is not acceptable, and having that sort of thing was going on. That's not the case anymore. I mean, you show up and it's just robots everywhere, and people are working their butts off to try to keep up with the robots, right? And I talked to my partners over there, and there's lots of people getting laid off, and they're struggling too, right? It's not like they're just sitting over there, Uncle Scrooge with their piles of money. Everybody's fighting to stay competitive in this game. And China, for 15 years now or whatever, has had this initiative replacing humans with robots. And that's what the government's been investing in, right?
Exactly. I mean, the foresight to do that, because they had the labor at that point to throw into it. Now, they probably did see the writing on the wall, because their population has been pretty dramatically declining, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. So they probably knew. But, and that's what I always wonder is, like, if they could see the writing on the wall and from a top level perspective decided to invest in that initiative, and then you look at U.S. manufacturing, and we're like just starting to think, oh, maybe we should try out some automation. Maybe, well, yeah, exactly.
Except for, and it's so late now that, like, guess what? If we want to buy any automation tools, we're going to buy them from China because they've a decade ahead of us, right? And and then the reality, whether you believe it's going to happen or not, it is a fact that when you get on a Tesla earnings call and Elon says we're going to be shipping thousands of these humanoid robots that are already doing productive jobs and stuff, like, my biggest fear is that the American manufacturing conversation is going to go quickly from bring it back to America to holy crap, but that means we're giving all our jobs to the robots. And it sounds a little bit crazy today, but the reality is, to your point, the answer is automation. And so the way we've been doing it just isn't going to work in the next
No.
20 years, not to be competitive. It's going to have to be a stepwise change in order for us to stay in the game and for it to make sense.
Right. Yeah, and we got to quit thinking that it's taking people's jobs, because
Yeah.
we have a population decline too, and we have less people,
Exactly.
a smaller percentage of our population that is even interested in working in manufacturing jobs. So
Yeah.
it's not taking jobs; it's filling in for the humans that don't exist or that don't want to do the jobs.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to kind of think about it more like that.
Yeah, I mean, Jensen talks about it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. You go.
I was just going to say, when Jensen's talking about NVIDIA, he says, AI is like, it's not taking any jobs. We're using AI more and more every day, which is creating more prosperity, which means we're hiring more people. Like when you think in the perspective of a company, at the end of the day, you want to be productive. And if these tools make you more productive, then you will be bigger and you will grow and ultimately end up hiring more people, right? They will just be different jobs, right? Just like the computer, we didn't need a bunch of secretaries sitting around with typewriters in front of them anymore. That job went away, but these companies continue to grow, and we will evolve. Like that's what humans are good at. It's just, to your point, having a bit of foresight and saying, hey, what about 10 years from now? I feel like America, we're having a conversation that should have happened 10 years ago. We're finally having it today. And if we don't start speeding up the conversation, we're going to be continuously stuck a decade or more in the past and just watching the rest of the world leapfrog us.